Time to elevate. You're running on empty with Matt and Tony.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. We are running on empty. I am Matt.
And I'm Tony.
And we got some fun stuff for you today. This is episode 3 of the show. Looking forward to some more interviews and things on future episodes. Today, we have a lot of relevant things to talk about, some things that are current in the news. So let's start off, I think, with what's on a lot of people's mind right now is a DNC. It's the first time it's ever been done virtually. So let's see what there is to discuss about this.
The Democratic National Convention. So we are taping the morning after Joe Biden officially became the nominee of the Democratic Party.
Yep.
And I think at some point they had something like 29 people that were running.
It was a lot.
Yeah. And a year ago, I don't think many people thought that Joe Biden would be the nominee.
I certainly didn't.
No, I mean, you had Bernie Sanders, who, of course, still has a strong following. You had Elizabeth Warren, and you had, many, you had Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And Biden just seemed kind of, yesterday's news.
Yeah.
But, and he was losing the campaign until South Carolina.
Yeah, I think in some of them, he was only polling like 8%, of the vote. But then South Carolina changed it all.
And
so
what happened in South Carolina, it was a huge, huge African-American vote that swung for Joe Biden over Sanders and other candidates. And then all the so-called moderate candidates dropped out of the race.
Yeah.
And that, Pete Buttigieg and several others, Amy Klobuchar, they dropped out, and that left the so-called center lane open for Biden. And so now here we are. He's the guy. And what have you thought about the convention the first couple of nights?
I thought the opening was actually really good. Being that I've had to do a lot of stuff with Zoom and whatnot through the pandemic here, knowing, I actually have after last episode and knowing that the DNC is going to be just virtual and not in person, it definitely takes a lot of the thump and the fire out of it. But the intro where they had all the folks singing the national anthem and everything, that was super cool to see. So they really tugged on the heartstrings to get it going. So that I was glad to see that. But then as it starts to go on, we talked about some of it was, I don't know, I guess I would say kind of blatant pandering, but that's what this is, isn't it? But some of it seemed a little bit too canned for my liking. Again, I've seen a lot of online stuff, and I know a lot of other people have. The speeches were good. I love Michelle Obama's speech. That was the highlight of day number 1. And I think his wife was Joe Biden was the highlight of day number 2. And the fact that he crashed it at the end was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's good. It definitely doesn't have the same fire as being in person. But I think they're taking the high road and they're taking the safe road and not wanting to get any of their voters. I mean, we can't risk losing any voters right now, I don't think. So
yeah, there's a couple of subplots at this convention. So one of them being the amount of Republicans that have been invited to speak that end up getting more speaking time than the young progressive Democrats like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So John Kasich, the former governor of Ohio, very conservative guy, who has a lot of positions that are blatantly opposed to what Democrats say they stand for. He ends up with a primetime speaking slot. And, it's not clear to me. I suppose it's better that the moderate Republicans like Kasich, it's probably better that they're in this Democratic tent than not in there. Yeah. But on the other hand, how many votes does John Kasich really bring with him?
I don't think a whole lot. I mean,
no.
I wasn't happy to see on the ABC one that I was watching, they have Chris Christie as a commentator on there. And as much as a lot of Democrats don't necessarily like to listen to him, I don't I don't really like to listen to him, but he was, I think, very honest and forthcoming in how the Republicans are responding and reacting, especially to Kasich there. He says, you know what? He's not one of the big popular guys. It wasn't really one of the big popular guys overall. So his comment was, okay, he's there, he's speaking and whatnot. That's fine. But he's not really affecting the overall Republican viewpoint of what's going on the Democratic side. So as much as you don't want to hear it, I believe he's right. That he's not that big of a deal. I mean, we're talking about a lot of Republicans coming in, and I know they're going to get some more Lincoln Project folks on there, but they're going to poo-poo and downplay that as well. But I don't know that Kasich deserved the spot that he had. I know he was running before, but I just don't think it's as relevant. It's good to have a Republican speak, especially in support of Joe Biden, but I don't know. I just don't think it's got the horsepower that they really think it's going to have.
I think what's happening, Matt, and I saw last year I spoke to a group of senior citizens here in Oshkosh, and we talked about the 2020 election, and there were about 150 people in my audience, and the overwhelming amount of them were supportive of Joe Biden.
That's good.
Right? Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this was even before the primary season began. And so I would ask why. And the dominant reasoning was that, and I think a lot of older voters feel this way. They think that Donald Trump is kind of like an aberration. It was like, seriously, that Donald Trump, it was like a mistake, and that we need someone like Biden to go back to normal. Right? Now, what is normal? Normal for a lot of these voters is the day when, a Democratic president could actually speak to a guy like John Kasich.
Yeah.
Right? This is their vision of bipartisanship. But my concern is, I'm not sure that old normal was very good because it set the stage for the madness we're in now.
True.
That's right. That's one of my concerns. And B, that striving for that normal really ends up alienating all that youthful energy at the grassroots.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've got these Bernie Sanders progressives, they're going to vote for Biden.
Yeah.
But I think that just voting for Biden is not enough. I mean, you need people to go out there and being activists. And how do you go out there if you're one of those, 18 to 30-year-old progressives that's all about, street activism?
Sure.
How do you go out there knocking on doors for a guy that's overtly, working with people that you believe are opposed to your agenda? Like, for example, last night, the part of the convention that I thought was the most moving was that man, Addy Barkin.
Mm-hmm.
He's the ALS.
Yeah.
He's clearly doesn't have that much longer to live. He's speaking through a computer now. He was supporting Bernie Sanders in the primary, basically on one issue, Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Right. Which has overwhelming support among the Democratic Party base. Joe Biden does not support it.
No.
Right. So how do you get your activists at the street level fired up if the candidate, the nominee, is not supporting the key issues? I mean, basically, you put people in a position where it becomes a lesser evil election.
Yeah, I think that's really what this is, honestly.
Well, and I think the Democrats can win that, but where do you go from there?
Yeah, I think this is where Harris is going to be very important, because I don't think her and Biden see eye to eye on everything, obviously, and the whole Medicare for all. I think she is more wanting to go down that road. She's obviously going to, pay attention to what Biden wants to do, but I think she's going to listen to the Bernie Sanders of the world and Elizabeth Warren and whatnot, who are really big on that standpoint, and really, kind of sit down and have a discussion, at least invite the discussion as to what this is. Because I know he could say no right now, but I think when it's explained is like the biggest thing about Medicare for all that I think people get upset about in general is they're like, okay, well, you're already, I'm already paying all this money and now you're going to raise my taxes. Well, the one thing that nobody's saying, and this includes Bernie Sanders, it's like, okay, so let me put this in a flow chart. So right now you're paying a substantial amount of tax and you're getting your health insurance take out. Okay, well, and then but if you have like private insurance or some other type of insurance, I know that we changed insurances here in Colorado because our insurance from 2019 to 2020 went from $859 a month for two of us to almost $2,000 a month. Mm. And then on top of that, we're paying tax. Okay, so $2,000 a month, I'm paying $24,000 a year just for insurance on top of a $16,000 deductible. Okay, so I've got to come up with like 40 grand out of pocket before I can even, think about anything when it comes to insurance. Whereas now that $2,000 goes away when you have Medicare for all, your taxes go up a little bit, but not a huge amount. I wouldn't think they would go up a huge amount anyway, but now maybe you've got $500 or $600 coming out of your paycheck every month that goes to Medicare for all. And now when you have to go to the doctor, you go. There's no deductible. You might have to wait a little bit. But I think if you even take a look at what this pandemic's done, the hospitals are going, where are all the other sick people? There's not a lot of other sick people in the hospital right now. So are we getting better as a nation, or are we just, downplaying the other conditions, not wanting to go to the hospital because you don't want to get sick with COVID? Whatever the case, I think that over time, the Medicare for all will kind of regulate itself and focus more on education. And I think that's where, because he's big on education and Joe Biden's huge on education. So let's focus on education and making a healthier country so we don't have to rely on a sick healthcare system.
I'll tell you, when we finally get Medicare for all, which, by the way, people can go to the Kaiser Family Foundation or the California Nurses Association websites. They've got all kinds of studies that show it's much more affordable. When you think of how much the average person is paying in premiums, deductibles, and copays, there's no way taxation for Medicare for all would even approach that.
No, and you take a look at the profits as these insurance companies.
Right.
It's sickening.
But my prediction is when we finally get Medicare for all, and it's still going to take, unfortunately, probably another 10 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
Within 5 years, it'll be the most popular program ever created.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, very much like Social Security. FDR had a fight for it and struggle for it. Came out in the 1930s, and by far it's been the most popular program in the history of the federal government. And I think that would happen with Medicare for all also. Yeah. But again, but my bigger point was, here you got the Democratic Party base that supports that by huge margins, and now we have a nominee who doesn't support it. And so my other concern at that convention last night was, it's great to have Colin Powell supporting you, right? It's great to have John Kerry give a speech on your behalf, but he's got all of these people that supported the Iraq War.
Yeah.
That, so the Iraq War has not gotten any more popular as time has gone on.
I don't think so.
No. And here you got Joe Biden, who was kind of like a champion for it in the Senate. So, my concern is that what the Democrats are doing at this convention is they're giving prime time speaking space to people who have been rejected, right?
Yeah.
I saw someone said last night, oh, wow, Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter, and I'm sure Barack Obama will all speak out at this convention for Joe Biden. And look at Donald Trump. He's not going to have any former president, right? Any like, for example, George W. Bush will not be there speaking out for him, or Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee. I'm not sure that hurts Trump. Right? These politicians have been rejected.
Yeah.
And Trump, for all of his downfall, his bad points, and they are extremely numerous, part of his popularity with his base is that he represents a complete rejection of all that.
Yeah.
And I think there are some people, again, like some of those seniors I spoke to, who think that there's a population out there that wants us to restore that old order. I don't think people want the old order restored.
No.
I think they want policy that benefits them and their families.
Well, you said before, lesser of two evils. And Joe Biden obviously is not perfect, but even though he doesn't necessarily like Medicare for all, even though, I know he's got some different ideas with Social Security, et cetera, far better than what's going on right now. But I did see something with regard to the payroll deductions and whatnot. A lot of businesses, even though they said we're going to do these payroll tax cuts, don't necessarily want to participate in that because they understand the long-term implication of cutting payroll taxes right now. Until you get a replacement to fund Social Security and Medicare, you really should not get rid of that program. And then, of course, Fox News spins it as, we're going to put $40 billion in the taxpayers' pockets every month, because we're going to do these payroll tax deductions. Okay, well, sure, you've got a little bit more money now, but when you need it, when you retire, which I believe is a lot of Trump's base, these people rely on Social Security and Medicare. And if he's cutting that stuff out, they're going, okay, well, what about us?
Right.
So, yeah, I like I said, I think it's the lesser of two evils. That it can't be as bad as it's been. It just can't be as bad as it's been. Although, if you talk to some Trump supporters, and I know a few of them, I got a friend that works for the post office who, up until evidently yesterday, was in danger of losing his job. And he still wanted to vote for this guy. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to lose your job because your boss is pretty much, throwing a wrench into everything. And tomorrow you might not have a job, but all of a sudden now there's this big blowback, this big pushback, and the post office is safe for a little while longer. At what point, what does this, I've even seen like Bill Maher and John Oliver say, what does this guy have to do to change your mind?
Well,
I don't know what it takes.
Well, as related to what you're talking about, as Joe Biden is at this remote convention, Donald Trump came to Wisconsin, and he came to my town, Oshkosh, earlier in the week. And, I saw some photos from the event. He spoke at an airport hangar, and a lot of
You
people.
didn't go?
No, I didn't go. There was a large protest. Unfortunately, since September 11th, 2001, protests against the president, you can't even get remotely close to a president now. But anyway, a lot of people I know that are supporting Trump, and it's kind of like what in political science they call personality cults. All right. I think what's going on in our country right now is I'll call it Stalinism, in the sense that when Stalin was ruling the Soviet Union, it was like he ruled everything. The entire society revolved around Stalin. That's a personality cult. Yeah. But significantly, it wasn't just Stalin's supporters that were dominated by him. It was also his opponents. And that's what's going on in our country right now. So at this Democratic convention, almost everything is centered around Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, every now and then a speaker will show up and say, here's what Joe Biden will do if he gets elected. I mean, they had Chuck Schumer finally. Thank goodness someone came out and said, if we have a Democratic Senate, here's what they will do.
Yeah.
But by and large, the entire conference is centered around Trump. And likewise with Trump supporters. I noticed here in Oshkosh, you ask a lot of people, why are you supporting him? And it's basically an emotional kind of, almost like a catharsis, I guess they would call it.
Wow.
In theater. It's really, including among a lot of people who should know better.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, a lot of Donald Trump's positions are not traditional Republican positions.
Not at all.
They're certainly not Democrat positions either.
No.
They're right. like before Donald Trump, how many Republicans did you know that would say, you know what, I think the president of the United States should write a love letter to Kim Jong-un? Right? What would the Republicans have said if Barack Obama had done that?
Right?
There would be an impeachment hearing.
Yeah. Well, I saw something the other day, just a list of things. If Obama would have paid off a porn star, had 3 different wives and different kids from different wives, had any thought about talking with a foreign power about anything, they would have gone absolutely crazy.
And that's
let me shoot at some protesters with tear gas so I can hold a Bible upside down for a photo op. It's a book that man probably has never ever read.
And see, that's how you're in the realm of personality cult politics. When people will support the man over what they normally believe and what they know in their heart to be right.
Yeah.
That's when a personality cult has taken over. And I think the extreme example of this might be the late Herman Cain, who, ran for president in 2016 or 2012, I think it was, whatever year it was, goes to the Trump rally in Tulsa, insists that the mask mandates are a fraud, and kept saying the coronavirus was a fraud. Shortly after the Tulsa rally, he comes down with coronavirus, and in less than 30 days, he's dead.
Yeah.
All right. And I mean, some of the personality cult politics can be so powerful that some of these people are literally giving their lives for Donald Trump. Right.
I don't understand. And he even tweeted from beyond the grave. Did you see that?
Right. Now, most of us will give our lives for our families, maybe for some broad principles like freedom. I don't know about you. I'm not giving my life for Donald Trump.
Never. No. No.
Or Joe Biden, or Barack Obama. Right? We shouldn't give our lives for any politician.
No. Country, yes, but person and party, no. No, not at all.
And that's where we are. And I'll tell you, I didn't go to the protest in Oshkosh either. I heard a lot about it, and apparently the protesters against Trump were met by some counter protesters who were for Trump, and it apparently became what you would expect, a lot of really nasty yelling back and forth. And
sure,
maybe that's a good transition, Matt, to our featured artist for the day.
Oh, yeah.
Seasick Steve, right?
Seasick Steve. I love this guy.
Now,
thank you for introducing me to him, because his music is phenomenal.
Now, Seasick Steve, no one really knows how old he is. The birth date that's given is 1951, which would make him close to 70 years old. But a lot of people think he might be much older than that.
He looks older than that.
Yeah. Now, Seasick Steve, worked in the South, as a laborer. He was a migrant farmer for a while. Got into music. Spent some years in Seattle working with bands during the grunge era. But in the early 2000s, he went to Europe, where he became wildly successful. He plays a kind of blues and rhythm and blues with a really gritty kind of guitar sound. And I just love his music, and I wish he would get played more on FM radio. His latest CD is called Love and Peace.
Yep.
And Matt and I just love the title song, Love and Peace, because it's really about why can't we just communicate anymore or connect. And let's have our audience listen to it. I think people will like it.
Hey man, what's the issue here? It's all gotten tangled up. Don't listen to each other no more. Nobody knows what the trouble is. Nobody sees. Hey man, I got an idea. You wanna hear? Are you just too busy now? Try a little respect, common courtesy, just a little respect. Be nice to each other, you see. Gotta stop the hatred now. Give back to love and peace. Hey man, where we get this hot and duty from? Is that the best we got? Where are all the leaders gone? Brother Martin Luther King, Brother Bobby Kennedy. Have mercy on you. Have mercy on me. Gotta stop the hatred now. Give back to love and peace. Gotta stop the hatred now. Get back to love and peace. Get back to love and peace. It just ain't some words to say. Love and peace. It just ain't some old cliche. Nah, nah, nah. Love and peace. It ain't just some words to say, some words to say. Love and peace. It just ain't some old cliche. It's all got so divided. Just ain't no middle ground. He right and she wrong. Don't see no way around. I say, come together just a little bit. Let love be the call. Gotta stop the hatred now. Get back to love and peace, y'all. Yeah, I guess people, it's just up to you and me. Gotta make our world a better place to be. Try to end all this poverty, such a travesty. Gotta stop the hatred now. Get back to love and peace. Gotta stop the hatred now. Get back to love and peace. Get back to love and peace. It ain't just something to say. Love and peace. It just ain't some old cliche, some old cliche. Love and peace. It ain't just some words to say, some words. Love and peace. It just ain't some old cliche. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
All right, that was Seasick Steve and Love and Peace. What I love his sound, man. What a great sound.
Amazing.
And what most of his guitars he makes himself, right?
He does make his own guitars. Often he'll make them out of like hubcaps and broomsticks and beer cans. I mean, he's got, I don't know how he does it. It's really amazing.
One of the videos of him in his house is just kind of doing a home jam session. It's 3 strings and it's made out of a washboard. And that thing has got grit and just, seriously, the sound is so, I think honestly, it's so important to the message. Like it makes the message mean that much more because of the sound that he's got. Because I haven't heard any other blues artist like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know, the message in Love and Peace, it's kind of like deceptively simple, correct? Because like,
yeah,
someone could easily say, oh yeah, right, love and peace, you know, an old hippie kind of cliche. But if you think about it, it's not easy.
No.
Right? People, you know, I recently wrote a blog post about Martin Luther King, and you know, everyone talks about the "I Have a Dream" speech, but I argue that his best speech was called "Love Your Enemies," and it's extremely difficult. People often say, "Oh yeah, right, love your enemies," as if that wouldn't fix things. No, it would fix things.
Yeah,
it's extremely difficult to do, and no culture in the world, including ours, unfortunately, has a critical mass of people that are ready to go down that road. But it may be, and I don't want to be too you know, philosophical here, but it may be that the fate of the world, the future of the world, is going to require that a core group, a critical mass of humanity, go down that road. Because we see, look, we've seen where bitterness and anger and tension and rage, we see where that gets us.
Yeah.
And it's not getting us very far.
Not at all.
And unfortunately, it does tend to feed some of the worst elements in society. You're right. It paradoxically makes them stronger.
When I do a social media post, and I'm guilty of, you know, of trading barbs, you know, like anybody else. But as I'm watching this, I'm like, you know what, this is just falling right into where they want us to be. You know, let's divide and conquer. And so I was watching one. This was in Colorado the other day. You know, there's so many people that like our governor and some people that don't like our governor, and it's just trash talking back and forth. And my comment was, I said, you know, I said there is a lot of hate on this post. And I said, and if it's so easy to spread hate, why can't we spread love instead? Oh, you big old hippie. Well, fine, I'm a hippie. But why is it that all the people that have just wanted to not fight anymore are the ones that get killed? Gandhi, Martin Luther King, all these great, you know, John Lennon, you know, all these people that just wanted to be purveyors of peace. No, we can't have that. We can't have that. You can't disrupt the war machine. You can't disrupt the divisiveness. And I'm thinking, why? You know, we've got a group of friends out here. We get together and we don't talk politics. We don't talk about religion or anything. We just talk about getting along and trying to fix things. And I think that's what his song wants to do, is just, you know, identify the fact that, man, if we communicated a little bit more, you know, it's hard to forgive your enemy. You won't always forget, but it's hard to forgive. But if you can move past a lot of this stuff. In the last 5 years that we've been here in Colorado, I have been working really hard on trying to drop the anger. I mean, there's a lot. A lot of things just surfaced that I didn't even realize were making me angry. Mm-hmm. But when you have a chance to walk out in the woods or just go someplace and leave all of your electronic devices behind and can sit there and look at this gorgeous mountain or whatever you happen to be looking at and start pointing the finger inside yourself, kind of take a look at who you really are and what you really stand for. I think a lot of people during this pandemic, this has been a silver lining. A lot of people are thinking that way, kind of going, wow, you know, maybe, and the whole term is, you know, woke or waking up. But I think a lot of people are starting to make that turn. So we'll
I mean, and just to be clear, there's a hell of a lot to be angry about.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be mad about, but how do we channel that into some really productive community activism, right? You know, as you know, I'm married to the mayor of Oshkosh, Lori Palmieri, and she is someone like me who's been really angry about a lot of things, and she decided to run for office and became mayor. Our mayor in Oshkosh is not the strongest mayor, like a mayor of a big city, sure, but it does have some powers over the agenda of the city. And she has kind of restructured a lot of citizen boards and commission commissions in our town and appointed people, young people, people of color, who normally don't get involved in government. And so I think it's a good example of saying, all right, look, I can either sit around angry that my city is run by old boys, or I can try to find a way to run for office, get in there and make some positive changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has to happen, right? I would never tell anyone don't be angry, because if you're not angry, you're not watching.
Yeah,
Everybody,
there's a complete understanding and right to be angry on either side of the fence. It does not matter.
Yeah. So now that you're clear in your mind about what's making you upset, it then becomes an issue of what are we going to do with that? And I think for too many of us, it just becomes this really unproductive rage. Sometimes it translates itself into street activism, which is great. It's nice to have people in the streets, but even that has, at some point, it has to be translated into a coherent program for change.
Yeah, like you could protest till you're blue in the face, but unless something is now done about it and it's taken the next step, what are we protesting for? It can't just be protesting. Okay, we've got our message out, we've got our point across. No, we now actually have to do something about it. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think those of us who are teachers, I think that we need to do a much better job. No matter what our field of study is, we need to do a much better job of educating our students, especially young people, about good old-fashioned civic engagement.
Yeah.
Where, and helping people to understand, where is the power in your community? How do you lobby that power? That too many people don't understand those basics. And I think the more we can help with that understanding, the better off we'll all be.
Yeah.
As a society.
I do have to say this one thing. When I first took your class way back when, don't want to say how many years ago it was, but when I first took your class and you were talking about things exactly like this, activism and finding your voice and getting your voice heard and speaking up for what you believe in. The fact that your wife is now the mayor 100% validates your entire professor career.
It had nothing to do with me.
Well, but it just, to me, it makes a whole lot of sense. It's like, this is all the things we've talked about a long time ago. And over the course of your career, this is, now the path you're on. It's awesome, I think, because it really validates, it validates what we talked about in the classroom. This is somebody who stood up and is making a difference, so yay.
Yeah, and I tell you, it's hard. One thing that she's learned is that the moment you put your name out there, I served in local government for 4 years on our city council, and people don't hesitate to call you or email you when they think you're screwing something up.
Oh, yeah.
That's by far the majority. You rarely get people emailing or calling to say, hey, I just want you to know you're doing a great job. Right? and so, she's had to learn how to deal with that kind of feedback, right? You have to learn how to get that kind of feedback and just kind of like let it bounce off you, but always, listening, because sometimes even the most nasty negative feedback has a grain of truth in it, correct? So you have to just listen carefully and try to make adjustments as you can. So you have a rant that you want to do today to close off our show, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 53 years old, have been running a company for 25 years, and can't do anything right now because it's live events, live entertainment, very much like, Matt, who's produced 700 of them. We do a lot, but when your clients can't do live events and they can't do really anything that you used to be able to do the way you used to do it, there's this thing called unemployment, which the first time in my entire life I've actually had to check it out. It took a while to get everything going, and I know some friends of mine are not even getting theirs yet. They're fighting for it. Some of them live in Florida and are having a very difficult time. But here, one of the things you have to do, you have to check a box that says, if you're audited, it says if you've ever searched for a job, we want to make sure you're actively looking and not just sitting down and collecting a check. Well, I am busting my butt every single day, every single week since this thing started to try to get people to do things. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. but I have to do a job search to be compliant with the unemployment that you get. And the problem I have is with looking at these job boards. The two big ones that you'll find out, like it used to be Monster. I think Amazon is the only company that uses Monster right now. Because when you look on there, it's all about all the different things you can do with Amazon and delivering and driving and warehouse and whatnot. We've got all that around here. So I stick with two services, Indeed and Glassdoor.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two services I happen to like. And I also like a service called Upwork, which is like, that's for the gig folks. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I haven't seen a W-2 form in 25 years. I only get, 1099s, W-9 forms. But when I'm looking at these jobs, they don't pay a whole lot. Like in order for me to replace what I was making with my company is incredibly difficult. And so I'm looking at jobs that are higher end jobs, management level jobs. And even these are at a pay scale, which is downright insulting.
Right.
I was looking at one the other day. This is sorry for the long introduction, but the rant is that there's these jobs out there that, they're looking for like a microbiologist, or they want somebody that's got, 20 years of business to business experience and unlimited marketing potential and blah, 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 $38,000 a year, $48,000 a year. So you want to pay me poverty wages to have 10 years experience in this, 20 years experience in this, a degree in microbiology, all these computer certifications, and we're willing to pay you pittance. So I do my due diligence also in finding the companies that are posting these jobs and looking at their annual reports and looking at how much profit these companies are making. And I'm going, okay, you're saying $12 an hour and you want a rock star marketing specialist for $12 an hour. Okay. I'm not going to do that. And when you take a look at these companies that are making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue, the reason they're making this is not paying their people anything. And they want you to devote your life to come into this place and, sit in a cubicle and, be a telemarketer, whatever it happens to be for literally nothing. I'm not going to go out into a job right now and risk my life for under $100,000 a year. It just isn't going to happen. So I really wish that these companies that were on these services would just wake up and say, you know what, maybe if we offered more money, we would be able to fill these jobs and we wouldn't have to post them like every 26 days. The average job on Upwork is reposted every 26 days because they can't retain people at the shitty wages that they're paying.
Right. But I mean, that's been the nature of this economy going on like 40 years now.
Yeah. I guess I've been out of touch because I've not had to look at it in a long time.
No, I mean, I think, starting in the Reagan years in the 80s, you see the gap between the highest paid person in the company, the CEO, and the lowest paid person on the floor. I mean, it used to be like a 20-to-1 gap. Now it must be what 400-to-1, 500-to-1, right? And I mean, these companies do this because they can.
Yeah.
They can get away with it. We've had bipartisan administrations that have helped to deregulate the economy. And this is what you get.
Yeah.
And it especially is bad at a time like this when you all of a sudden have mass level unemployment.
Yeah.
Correct? Because now on top of everything else, they know that people are desperate for jobs.
Yeah.
And so they will take jobs at lower wages than what they are worth.
Yeah.
So, to kind of get this back to our earlier discussion in the show, I mean, if I had belief and faith that someone like Joe Biden was going to do something, dramatic, because I think we need dramatic action on this kind of issue, I'd be out there delivering literature door to door for him, right? But we're not gonna get that kind of dramatic action. We know it's going to get worse with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right. We know that, but at some point, as a society, we're going to have to start electing people that want to take issues like what you're describing, make them front and center, and develop popular support to get something through to change it. We're just not there yet at this point.
No,
now,
maybe I don't even know if a plan like that exists. I think really what they're writing on is return to normal. whatever that happens to be. But we definitely need some different changes. And I have to take the responsibility for being upset like that, because I've not had to do this in 25 years.
Right.
We've been doing really well. So now the fact that I have to look at this, but I think this is what it takes. You kind of look at it and go, this is wrong. I mean, and it's been wrong before, but for people that have been looking, I guess for me, it's I've not had to do it. So I've been out of touch, and it's my responsibility to stay with that. I mean, I'd always send resumes out, never expecting it to turn into anything, but it definitely, I think, needs to be addressed. And I think because people are taking the lower paying jobs now, I don't know that you're going to see it being addressed anytime soon.
Well, I mean, I think as a society, we have to reframe the way we even discuss issues like this. I mean, the United States is one of the only countries in the world where if a person is forced into unemployment, they're supposed to experience great stress, great anxiety about it. In all of the European economies, it's taken as a given that in every adult's life, there are going to be periods where you're either unemployed or underemployed. Mm-hmm. And needing the assistance is thought to be a normal thing. It's like needing water and air, right? We are one of the only countries in the world that treats unemployment as a personal failing of the unemployed. As if any one of the millions of unemployed people right now had anything to do with a pandemic breaking out.
That's what's upsetting me, is that this was not my fault, and I had nothing to do with this. I was ready to go. We had a great year.
Exactly.
And the lack of leadership, I not to bring in other stuff and maybe for a future episode, but there's a new strain of this thing out there that's starting to circulate around Malaysia and the Philippines. Mark my words, we're going to get that one too before the end of the year if we don't do anything about it, because it's already starting to spread over there.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying that the pandemic may simply be a dress rehearsal, a really horrible dress rehearsal for what global climate change is going to be bringing, just a norm of constant crisis, Well,
I've said it for a long time. Seriously, Mother Nature's got to change one molecule, and none of us are going to be here anymore.
Right.
It's literally that's the edge, the razor's edge we ride on every single day. Not that it could happen, but she's doing a pretty good job right now. People
I want to
or whatever, but
I'll end on a positive rant.
Please.
Okay. All right. All right. Here it is. I teach at the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. We start classes early in September, and we're looking around. And I had an online meeting with some of my colleagues this morning before this show. And we were talking in part about how, Notre Dame opened up and they quickly closed when there was an outbreak, and Michigan State had the same thing, and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So it's looking like any campus that opens is almost immediately closing, right? Now, it's easy to be negative about that, but I'm sitting there thinking, at least it means that there are rational people making decisions at these institutions, correct?
Yeah.
In other words, you could have people running North Carolina, Chapel Hill, or Notre Dame or Michigan State saying, you know what, we're going to believe our president. Just kind of like, let's all struggle through this. If young people get the virus, they'll live through it. But instead, they're making rational, I think, mature decisions that I guess it didn't work. I mean, we tried as hard as we could. Yeah. And I find that something to be positive about. I know that a lot of the students are upset, but maybe they're getting the message now that when people say, wear your masks, social distance, try to avoid these large parties, maybe now, I'm hoping this for my campus, that some of our, or all of our students are looking what's happening in these other places and saying, you know what, I don't want that to happen here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's a positive message that these campuses said, you know what, it didn't work. Let's go back to online, and we'll come back as soon as we can.
Yeah, I mean, we've never been in this before. So you do something and you try it and you're doing it in good faith.
Right.
But if it doesn't work, okay. We tried it, it didn't work. So we're going to do, go back to the virtual. So I'm hoping that it does seem that they're trying to do the best that they can, and I just hope that if students don't feel that it is being addressed, that they will do the right thing and be like, hey, you know what, like you said, the mask thing, the social distancing thing, we don't want to happen here what happened there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I think at some point people will say, you know what, this is not a hoax. Right. It turns out that when people don't wear masks and they insist on gathering in large meetings without social distancing, it turns out people do get sick.
Yeah.
And I think at that point there's got to be a collective decision. Let's simply behave in the right way, so maybe these things won't happen. And hopefully we'll have a vaccine, but at some point in the near future. All right. Well, another great conversation, Matt.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to our next one.
Thank you so much, Tony. And
thank you, Matt.
We'll see everybody on the next one. Take care, everybody. Peace out.
You're running on empty with Matt and Tony.